listen. Practice, speak. Practice makes you perfect.
Welcome to this deep dive, really tailored just for you. Today we're doing something a bit different, kind of interesting. We've got this collection of actual business meeting conversations.
Yeah, it's like being a fly on the wall during key strategy sessions.
Exactly, like eavesdropping almost. It's a
Right.
shortcut, really, to understanding the flow, the focus of all sorts of business scenarios.
Okay.
Stuff like, boosting user engagement, figuring out a sales strategy.
Mm-hmm. And our mission here, it's more than just summarizing. We really want to pull out the key insights, those aha moments,
Right.
from these like very realistic business situations. We'll be looking at how decisions get made, how they tackle challenges, how plans actually get put together.
Precisely. And the range of topics in these dialogues is pretty wide. We're talking boosting user engagement, Q1 marketing strategy,
The product development roadmap.
quarterly performance reviews, putting together a new client proposal,
Oh, annual strategy planning.
budget allocation, always a fun one.
Yeah. Team performance goals, risk management. Improving how departments work together.
Sales strategy, a company-wide feedback session, product launch stuff,
Customer retention.
and just, basic internal communication, making sure everyone's talking to each other effectively.
Okay, so let's unpack this. What can we actually learn here about, say, effective communication, strategic planning, solving problems, just from listening in on these conversations?
Good question. Let's start with that first one, boosting user engagement.
Right, so the main goal there is pretty clear, a 20% increase in user engagement. And they were really zeroing in on mobile platforms.
Yeah, and what struck me was they didn't just state the goal, they actually identified the why, the pain points.
Slow load times.
And that unclear navigation, right? Especially on mobile, it wasn't just a wish, it was tied to real problems.
Exactly. And the strategies followed directly from that. Load time, optimization,
Okay.
standard stuff.
Yeah.
But the navigation, a full redesign.
Yeah.
And the key thing there, I thought, was the A/B testing. At every phase, they weren't just guessing.
That's so important. Letting the user data drive the design, not just assumptions.
Totally. It avoids sinking resources into something that just, doesn't work for users.
And the timeline they mentioned, phase 1 in 3 weeks, full rollout in 2 months, that felt ambitious, but structured, shows urgency.
It does. And they also thought ahead about resources, didn't they? Needing more support for user testing.
Yeah, and planning to coordinate with the testing team right away. That kind of foresight is great.
Plus the basics, like clear responsibilities, a task list. Sounds simple, but easily missed.
Keeps everyone accountable. And the weekly updates, too, that signals transparency, agility, catching problems early.
Right. Okay, so shifting gears. The Q1 marketing strategy. What stood out there?
Well, the big push was digital. Social media, search ads, focusing on the ROI.
Which makes sense. But they weren't just sticking to the tried and true. They were also looking at new platforms like TikTok.
Right, trying to reach that younger audience, adapting.
And that investment in influencers, 15% of the budget, that's pretty significant.
It is. Shows how much weight that carries now. Plus, that tweak in content strategy towards more video, keeping up with trends.
Definitely. But they also stressed consistent branding across everything. Coordination with design was key there.
Yeah, you can't have different messages flying around. Even scaling back offline marketing a bit seemed data-driven, though they still saw value in events.
Trade shows, maybe sponsorships too, for visibility.
And that hard deadline budget finalized by Friday for the next meeting keeps things moving.
Okay, let's jump to the product development roadmap. Timeline was the big starting point there.
Yeah, aiming for a prototype by mid-February. They even said it themselves, it was tight.
Which immediately brings up resources. They flagged possibly needing a contractor for design help.
Realistic. And again, that iterative testing. Doing it alongside development, not just at the end.
Smart, catching issues early. And the communication piece, again, weekly syncs between developers and testers.
Crucial for keeping development and QA aligned, and the phased rollout, starting with the biggest market.
Yeah, that's a good risk mitigation tactic.
Yeah.
Test it in a controlled way first.
Before going wide. And prioritizing core features for phase 1, adding enhancements later. Pragmatic.
Get the main thing working solidly first.
Yeah.
And then commit to gathering user feedback post-launch using surveys, analytics.
Continuous improvement loop. Plus, clear ownership for each phase. Accountability again.
Right. Now, the quarterly performance review, they started with the good stuff, which is smart.
Definitely. Highlighting achievements first. Sales team hitting 15% over target.
And linking it to the new CRM, showing that tech investment paid off.
Yeah, tangible results, marketing met their goals too, better click-through rates on digital ads. Good for morale to start there.
Absolutely. But they didn't ignore the problems, those communication gaps between departments, a recurring theme it seems.
It often is. Their solution seemed practical, though. Cross-departmental workshops.
Working with HR on that, and standardizing project handovers with a checklist. Simple, but effective for reducing dropped balls.
Yeah. And publicly recognizing top performers. Another good morale booster. Reviews aren't just about fixing things.
True. Celebrating wins is important. Okay, on to the new client proposal. The focus there was clarity right from the start.
Yes, that executive summary needs to grab them immediately. Show the value proposition up front.
And they knew what clients care about. Cost savings. Highlighting that potential, maybe using a case study.
Like that logistics project they mentioned, quantifiable results are persuasive.
Definitely. And including a detailed pricing breakdown transparency builds trust.
No ambiguity. And that roadmap for the first 3 months reassures the client about what they're getting and when.
Plus, tailoring the whole thing to the client's specific industry, not just a generic pitch.
Shows you've done your homework. And that final internal review before sending it. Essential quality check.
Absolutely. Okay, annual strategy. Big goals there. Expanding into 2 new markets.
Southeast Asia and Eastern Europe. Ambitious. Which brings up a lot of complexity.
Right away, they flagged needing local talent. Understanding the local nuances is critical.
Culturally, legally, and bringing in the legal team early for compliance checks. Very smart. Avoids headaches later.
And localized marketing strategies, obviously. Can't just copy-paste what works elsewhere.
Different cultures, different market needs, which led to diversifying the product line, too.
Yeah, customization for Southeast Asia, maybe new offerings for Eastern Europe, aligning product with strategy.
And scheduling those brainstorming sessions with product teams early on. Good integration.
And defining the metrics for success up front. Market share growth, customer satisfaction. Tracking it all with a dashboard. Data-driven again.
Let's talk budget allocation. Often contentious, right?
It can be. They prioritize new investments, suggesting 20% for R&D. That's a strong signal about innovation.
And that 10% increase for digital ads based on ROI, again, letting the data guide the spend.
Makes sense. And thinking ahead about the product launch costs, factoring that in.
Plus, investing in people more training, especially for sales.
And scaling up customer support before the launch anticipates the need. Smart plan.
Increasing the contingency fund, too, from 5% to 8%, building in a bigger safety net.
Prudent. And having that deadline to finalize the breakdown keeps the process on track. A solid budget underpins everything.
Okay, team performance goals. They started at the team level, right? Like 10% revenue increase for sales.
Yeah, and suggesting performance-based bonuses to really incentivize hitting that target.
Makes sense. For marketing, it was more about engagement, 15% increase on social media. Not just reach, but interaction.
Right. And more training for the product team, specifically in agile methods, improving processes.
The 360-degree reviews idea is interesting, getting broader feedback.
And the less formal stuff, too, quarterly awards, maybe a team retreat, building culture and recognizing effort.
Morale matters. Okay, risk management. What were the big concerns?
Supply chain disruptions were top of mind. They talked about backup suppliers, adjusting inventory.
Practical steps. Cybersecurity was another big one. Firewall upgrades, regular audits with IT.
Standard but crucial. Financial risks, too close monitoring, contingency funds, those monthly spending reviews.
And legal risks, especially with the market expansion. Consulting legal again.
And reputational risks, having a PR strategy, quick response protocols, assigning media monitoring, covering the bases.
And aiming to finalize the whole framework quickly. Being proactive about threats.
Essential for stability. Now, improving how departments collaborate. Communication gaps were the main issue, weren't they?
Yeah, the biggest bottleneck identified. Their fix. A unified communication tool, maybe Slack or Teams.
Makes sense. Plus regular interdepartmental meetings, maybe monthly, just getting people talking.
And standardizing project management practices across teams. A workshop for team leads on that.
Get everyone using the same playbook, essentially. And assigning collaboration champions. Interesting idea.
Yeah, someone to drive it within each department. Plus encouraging informal stuff like team lunches.
Building relationships beyond just meetings. And rolling it out in phases makes sense. Test and adjust.
Okay, sales strategy. They were looking at both new clients and upselling existing ones.
Yeah. Prioritizing upselling because it's often more cost-effective. Tailoring special packages for top clients.
Smart. For new business, targeting growing industries like tech and healthcare.
With tailored pitches, of course, and maybe strategic partnerships to broaden their reach.
And they had a plan for underperforming accounts, too, not just dropping them.
Right, a retention campaign, maybe some exclusive incentives, assigning senior reps to handle those concerns directly, trying to turn things around.
Shows commitment to the customer base. What about that company-wide feedback session idea?
Seems like a good plan. Doing it department by department, smaller groups, might encourage more open discussion.
And using anonymous surveys first to get initial thoughts?
Yeah, gather input safely. But the key was the follow-up plan, actionable steps for recurring issues. Show the feedback leads to change.
Absolutely. And involving team leads helps translate feedback into action, plus highlighting the positives, too.
Important for balance. And ending with a Q&A allows for more direct interaction. Setting a timeline keeps it on track.
Product launch strategies seem like a mix of online and offline.
Yeah, starting with a social media teaser campaign, Instagram, LinkedIn, getting the buzz going.
And having the content reviewed quickly shows they're organized. The launch event itself, neutral venue, key stakeholders invited.
Standard event planning, coordinating with the events team, and the press release timed a few days before launch.
Including client testimonials in there adds credibility.
Definitely. And crucially, training the sales team thoroughly on the product, features, benefits.
And that FAQ sheet for them, giving them the tools to sell it effectively.
Exactly. Okay, customer retention, how are they approaching that?
2 tiers, really. High-value clients get exclusive perks, discounts, early access, maybe a formal loyalty program.
Makes them feel special. And for the broader base, consistent communication, newsletters, updates.
But also educational content, like how-to guides, industry insights, adding value beyond just selling.
Right. And faster responses to complaints, proactive outreach, using that feedback loop to fix recurring problems.
Plus, a specific thank you campaign for long-term customers, acknowledging loyalty.
Nice touch. Okay, almost there. Back to finalizing budget allocation.
They mentioned maybe reallocating unused funds from last quarter, being efficient.
And prioritizing high-impact projects with the best ROI, getting the most bang for the buck.
Maintaining that 10% contingency fund for flexibility.
And allocating a decent chunk, 25% to marketing, focusing on digital again.
Plus, budgeting for new hires, especially in design and development, investing in capacity.
And considering outsourcing non-core tasks. Strategic decision-making about where to spend resources.
Also looking into new project management software to boost collaboration. Researching tools.
Always good to improve internal workflows. Which brings us nicely to the last topic, improving internal communication itself.
A vital one. Streamlining digital channels was a priority. Maybe that unified platform again.
Slack or Teams research. Plus improving team updates weekly or bi-weekly huddles. More regular check-ins.
And a central place for project updates, like a shared drive or PM tool. No more hunting for info.
And more transparency from leadership regular updates. That builds trust.
And encouraging feedback on communication itself. Using a feedback form. Let people say what's working and what's not.
Smart. Roll it out next month. But test the platforms first.
Yeah.
Sensible approach.
Okay. Wow. That was a lot. Let's try and synthesize this a bit. What does this all mean for someone listening?
Well, what really stands out, I think, is just the sheer complexity, right? And how everything's connected within a business.
Yeah.
You've really gotten this inside look at how different teams plan, how they adapt, how they're constantly trying to succeed in all these different areas at once.
Absolutely. And you start seeing these recurring themes, don't you? Like clear communication popping up again and again.
And data-driving decisions, ROI, engagement metrics.
Proactive problem solving, thinking about risks, pain points.
And that constant focus on the customer, but also on the team, on performance.
Right. But here's where I think it gets really interesting. Beyond just the business context, these principles, planning, allocating resources, getting feedback, continuous improvement, they apply everywhere, don't they?
Absolutely. It's not just business jargon. It's fundamental to achieving pretty much any goal, personal or professional.
If you want to learn a new skill, manage a household budget, plan a trip, it's the same core ideas. Plan, execute, get feedback, adjust.
Exactly. That systematic approach.
So hopefully this deep dive, this look inside these conversations has given listeners a dose of that business thinking, maybe, a sense of how things connect.
Yeah, and maybe even some practical frameworks they can sort of borrow and adapt for their own goals.
Which leads to a good question for everyone listening to maybe think about. Which of these challenges or solutions we talked about really resonated with you, like sparked your interest?
Yeah. Was it the project management side, the marketing analytics, the team collaboration stuff?
Exactly. What area makes you think, I'd like to know more about that? How could you maybe explore that further?
Good thought. Keep that curiosity going.
Definitely. There's always more to learn, always more connections to make.
Welcome to this deep dive tailored just for you.
Yeah.
Today we're doing something a little different, actually.
Yeah.
We've got this collection of real business meeting conversations. It's almost like being a fly on the wall during key strategic talks.
Ah, okay. So eavesdropping on planning sessions.
Exactly. It's kind of a shortcut to understanding how different business scenarios play out, from boosting user engagement right through to working out a sales strategy.
Got it. So our mission here isn't just to summarize. We're trying to pull out the real insights, the sort of aha moments from these conversations.
Right.
Looking at how decisions actually get made, how they tackle problems, and how solid plans come together.
Precisely. And the range of topics is pretty wide.
Yeah.
We're talking boosting user engagement, Q1 marketing plans, product development roadmaps, quarterly performance reviews, crafting a new client proposal, annual strategy planning, budget allocation, always a fun one.
Always.
Team performance goals, risk management, making departments actually talk to each other.
Yeah. Improving collaboration.
Sales strategy, company-wide feedback sessions, product launch plans, customer retention, and, just improving internal communication overall. That's a lot.
It is. Okay, so let's dig in. What can we actually learn here about, say, effective communication or strategic planning or just solving problems by listening in on these chats?
Good question. Where should we start? Maybe that user engagement one.
Sounds good. So the main goal there, it seemed, was a 20% increase in user engagement.
Yeah, and specifically focusing on mobile platform.
Right. And they didn't just stop at the goal. They identified the key pain points.
Which were?
Slow load times and unclear navigation. Pretty common issues, really.
True. So tangible problems. What were the strategies?
Well, load time optimization was one. And for navigation, a pretty significant redesign.
Just like that. A redesign.
Well, not quite. The key thing was their plan to A/B test at every phase of that redesign.
Okay. So data-driven.
Yeah.
Letting users guide the changes.
Exactly. No guesswork. And the timeline was, well, ambitious.
How ambitious?
Phase 1 in 3 weeks. Full rollout in 2 months.
Wow. Okay. That's moving fast. Did they think they had the resources?
They actually flagged a need for more support for the user testing part.
Right.
And they had a plan to coordinate with the testing team straight away, anticipating the bottleneck.
Smart. And responsibilities.
Supposedly being clearly assigned, with a detailed task list coming, plus weekly updates for tracking progress.
Okay. Seems structured, if fast-paced. Let's shift to the Q1 marketing strategy then. What was the vibe there?
Definitely a big focus on digital channels, social media, search ads, basically where the ROI was proven.
Makes sense. Anything new on the horizon?
Yeah, they were looking at emerging platforms, specifically mentioned TikTok, to reach a younger audience.
Interesting. So balancing the proven with the potential.
Exactly. And influencer partnerships were getting a decent chunk of budget, 15%.
That's quite significant.
It is. And they were tweaking their social content strategy to more focus on video.
Following the trends. What about consistency across all these channels?
Big emphasis on that. Consistent branding was key, and they planned to coordinate closely with the design team.
Good. And offline marketing. Still a thing.
Scaled back a bit, but not gone. Still investing in events and trade shows.
Right.
They even talked about event sponsorships to boost industry visibility.
Right. And the budget needed to be locked down soon.
Yep, finalized by Friday, ready for presentation the next week. Tight turnaround again.
Seems to be a theme. What about the product development roadmap? Did the timeline dominate there too?
It was the starting point. They were aiming for a prototype by mid-February.
Which they admitted was.
Tight, yeah. They immediately flagged a potential need for a contractor for extra design help.
Realistic planning then.
Yep.
And testing. Similar approach to the engagement piece.
Very similar. Iterative testing alongside development to catch issues early.
Makes sense. How would they coordinate that?
Proposed weekly sync meetings between devs and a dedicated testing team. Close collaboration was the idea.
And the rollout itself. All at once.
No. Phased. Starting with the largest market first. Kind of de-risks it a bit.
Smart. What about features? Everything in phase 1.
Nope. Prioritizing core functionality first. Enhancements would come later. Get the basics solid.
Practical and feedback post-launch.
Continuous collection planned. Surveys, analytics tools, the usual suspects, and clear ownership for each phase.
Okay, good structure. Let's move to the quarterly performance review. How did that kick off?
They started with the positives, which is always good. Highlighted achievements first.
Like what?
Sales team exceeded targets by 15%. They linked it directly to using the new CRM effectively.
Showing the tech investment paid off.
Exactly. And marketing met their campaign goals, too, with better click-through rates on digital ads.
Good wins.
Yeah.
But performance reviews usually hit challenges, too.
They did. Recurring challenge. Communication gaps between departments.
The classic silo problem. Any solutions proposed?
Yeah, some practical ones. Cross-departmental workshops, working with HR on that.
Okay, trying to build bridges.
And streamlining project handovers with a standardized checklist, trying to reduce friction points.
Makes sense. Anything else on performance?
Just a note about publicly recognizing top performers to boost morale.
Always important. Okay, new client proposal. What was the focus there?
Clarity from the start. Really nailing the executive summary to show the value proposition immediately.
Grabbing attention quickly. What kind of value?
Big focus on cost-saving potential. They even suggested adding a specific case study, a logistics project they did to prove it.
Quantifiable results. Smart. What about pricing?
Detailed breakdown. Justify the costs, build trust, no surprises.
Good. And reassuring the client about delivery.
Yep, including a roadmap for the first 3 months. Show them the plan, show them they'll get value quickly.
And tailoring it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Customizing it to the client's specific industry needs was stressed. No generic proposals.
Right. Final step.
Internal review before it goes out. Quality check.
Standard practice, but crucial.
Yeah.
Okay, annual strategy. Big picture time. What were the goals?
Ambitious one. Expand into 2 new markets by year-end. Southeast Asia and Eastern Europe.
Wow. That's significant. How are they planning to manage that?
First step. Recognize the need for local talent. Need people who understand the markets. A recruitment plan was needed.
Makes sense.
Compliance. Straight away flag the need to work with legal. Ensure they're compliant in each region. Avoid pitfalls.
Crucial. And marketing for these new regions.
Localized strategies. Tailored to cultural nuances and market preferences. No one-size-fits-all.
And products. Same offerings everywhere.
Nope. Diversification. Customization for Southeast Asia. Potentially new offerings for Eastern Europe.
So really adapting.
Yeah. Planning brainstorming sessions with product teams to figure that out.
How would they measure success?
Key metrics. Market share growth and customer satisfaction scores in those new markets. Tracked via a dashboard.
Data-driven again? Let's talk budget allocation.
Yeah.
Where was the money going?
Priority on new investments. Recommended 20% of the budget for R&D.
Investing in the future. What about marketing spend?
Proposed a 10% increase in digital ads purely based on the solid ROI they were seeing.
Makes sense. Any big upcoming costs factored in?
Yeah, the product launch we discussed earlier, potential increase in the event budget for that.
Okay. People investments.
Expanding employee training, especially for the sales team.
Good. And supporting the launch.
Scaling up customer support resources, too, anticipating more queries.
Foresight. Any safety net in the budget.
Increased the contingency fund, bumped it from 5% up to 8%, more buffer.
Sensible. Deadline for this.
Final breakdown targeted by next Wednesday. Keep the momentum going.
Okay, team performance goals. How are they setting those?
Started at the team level, sales team target, 10% revenue increase.
Just the target.
No, also
Yeah.
suggested additional incentives, performance-based bonuses, that kind of thing, motivating the team.
Right. What about marketing? Revenue focus too.
More engagement-focused KPIs, aiming for a 15% increase in social media engagement.
Aligning goals with function. Any development plans?
Yeah, additional training for the product team, specifically in agile methodologies, improving process.
Okay. How about individual feedback?
Talked about doing 360-degree reviews, get broader insights, set up with HR.
Comprehensive.
And recognition.
Ideas like a quarterly award ceremony, maybe even a weekend retreat for team building. Boosting morale.
Sounds good. Let's pivot to risk management. What were the big concerns?
Supply chain disruptions were top of mind.
Understandable these days. Mitigation.
Backup suppliers, adjusting inventory levels, building resilience.
What else?
Cybersecurity, definitely.
Yeah.
Planned firewall upgrades, regular audits with IT.
Essential. Financial risks.
Close monitoring, the contingency fund we mentioned, and implementing monthly spending reviews. More oversight.
Legal risks, especially with the expansion.
Yep, planned compliance reviews and consultations with the legal team for the new markets.
Covering bases.
Augmentation.
Address that too.
Right.
Robust PR strategy, quick response protocols for bad press, marketing team to monitor media.
Comprehensive. Deadline for the framework.
End of next week. Getting it formalized quickly.
Okay. Now, improving interdepartmental collaboration. We heard communication gaps were an issue.
Yeah. Biggest bottleneck identified.
Solutions.
Unified communication tool was proposed. Researching Slack or Microsoft Teams, get everyone on the same platform.
Makes sense. What else?
Regular interdepartmental meetings monthly, just to get people talking.
Simple but effective.
And
Processes.
standardizing project management practices. Planned a workshop with team leads to align everyone.
A good idea. Any other initiatives?
Assigning collaboration champions in each department and encouraging informal stuff like team lunches.
Building relationships beyond meetings. How would they roll this out?
In phases starting next month. Test and learn approach.
Sensible. Sales strategy next. What was the focus? New business. Existing clients.
Both, but with a clear prioritization of upselling to existing clients. Often more cost-effective, right?
True. How would they upsell?
Tailoring special, customized packages for their top clients, make them feel valued.
And for new clients.
Targeting specific industries showing growth tech and healthcare were mentioned,
Okay.
and tailoring pitches specifically for those industries, plus considering strategic partnerships to expand reach.
What about clients who weren't performing well?
A specific plan for them too, retention campaign, exclusive incentives.
Trying to turn them around.
Yeah, and assigning senior reps to really understand and address their concerns, not giving up on them.
Good approach. And finalizing this plan.
By next week, ready for team rollout.
Okay. Company-wide feedback session. How did they plan to structure that?
Department by department, in smaller groups. Make it less intimidating.
And getting initial thoughts.
Using anonymous surveys first. Encourage honesty.
Crucial for feedback. What happens after the sessions?
Developing a follow-up plan with actionable steps for recurring concerns, showing they're listening and acting.
That's key. Who would be involved?
Team leads definitely help channel the feedback.
And focusing only on the negative.
No, also highlighting positive feedback and celebrating successes. Balanced approach. And ending with a Q&A.
Good. When would this start?
Aiming for the third week of the month?
Moving along. Product launch strategy. How are they approaching that?
A mix. Online promotion combined with in-person events.
Multi-channel. How would they kick it off online?
Teaser campaign on social media, Instagram and LinkedIn were priorities. Content needed review by Friday.
Getting the buzz going. What about the event?
Suggested a neutral venue, invite key stakeholders, coordination with the events team, obviously.
Standard stuff. Media outreach.
Press release planned for 3 days before launch, maximize coverage, and include client testimonials for credibility.
Nice touch. What about preparing the internal team? Sales.
Crucial part, scheduling a training session for them on features and benefits.
Equipping them to sell it.
Yeah, and creating an FAQ sheet for their reference. Give them the tools they need.
Thorough plan. Customer retention strategy next. How are they keeping clients happy?
Focused on high-value clients first. Offering exclusive benefits, personalized discounts, early access. Drafting a loyalty program proposal.
Rewarding the best customers. What about the rest?
Consistent communication. Newsletters, updates, but also valuable content like how-to guides, industry insights. Keep them engaged.
Adding value beyond the product. How about dealing with problems?
Quicker response times for complaints, proactive outreach, and importantly, a feedback loop to analyze recurring issues.
Learning from complaints. Any other touches?
A thank you campaign specifically for long-term customers. Recognizing loyalty.
Nice. Timeline for these.
Aiming to launch within the next 2 months.
Okay, almost there. Finalizing budget allocations seemed like they revisited this.
Yeah, circling back, considered reallocating unused funds from the last quarter. Efficiency focus.
Makes sense. How are they prioritizing?
High-impact projects, biggest ROI gets the focus.
And the contingency fund.
Confirmed at 10% in this final discussion.
Okay, marketing share.
Settled on 25%, still focused on digital.
And staffing.
Confirmed plans to hire, especially in design and development. Coordinating with HR.
Investing in people. Any outsourcing.
Considered it for non-core tasks. IT support, maybe some marketing stuff. Strategic decision.
And tools.
Looked at investing in new project management software. Improve collaboration, workflow, researching options.
Okay, last one. Improving internal communication. What were the key actions?
Prioritizing streamlining digital channels again.
And the unified platform.
Still researching Slack or Teams, but investing in one was a clear goal.
Regular updates.
Improving those. Weekly or bi-weekly team huddles. More frequent touch points.
Where to find info?
Dedicated space for project updates. Shared drive. Project management tool. Centralized info.
What about leadership communication?
More transparency needed. Regular updates from the top.
At employee input.
Encouraging feedback specifically on communication itself. Creating a feedback form.
Two-way street. Rollout.
Starting next month after testing the new platforms. Phased approach again. Okay. Wow, that was a lot of ground covered. Let's try and synthesize what this all means for, someone listening in.
Right.
What really jumps out is just the sheer complexity, isn't it? And how interconnected everything is within a business.
Definitely. It's like you got this window into how different teams are all planning, adapting, trying to succeed all at the same time.
Yeah. And you see these recurring themes popping up again and again.
Like Wes, what stood out to you?
Well, the absolute necessity of clear communication, obviously, that came up everywhere.
Right.
And making decisions based on data ROI, engagement metrics, testing results, not just gut feelings.
Right. Data-driven decisions. Also being proactive about problems, identifying risks early.
Exactly. And that constant focus on the customer, but also on team performance and making the workplace function better.
So it's this blend of external focus and internal health.
Precisely. And here's where I think it gets really interesting beyond just the business context.
Cool.
Think about how these conversations, even though they're about marketing budgets or product roadmaps, reflect broader principles. Planning, allocating resources, whether it's money or your own time, getting feedback, continuous improvement. These aren't just business jargon, are they? They're fundamental to achieving pretty much any goal.
That's a great point. It translates. So for someone listening, hopefully this deep dive wasn't just about business tactics,
Right.
but maybe gave them a concentrated dose of sort of strategic thinking, a sense of how things connect.
Yeah, and maybe even some frameworks they could, adapt for their own stuff, whatever they're working on.
So maybe the question for the listener is, which of these challenges or solutions we talked about really resonated?
Good question. Did the project management side click? Or the marketing analytics? Or maybe the team collaboration strategies?
Right. What sparked your interest, basically, and how could you maybe explore that area a bit more?
Yeah, because there's always more to learn, isn't there? Always deeper levels to explore.
Keep that curiosity engine running. There's always more out there.